You're listening to Mind Over Markets, a podcast on trading psychology to help you build a bulletproof mindset. Here's your hosts, George Papazov and Mark Borscht.
Successful trading is opposite of what you see on social media. It's not meant to be done overnight. There is a learning curve, and there's a learning curve for a reason, right? Because if everyone can do it, we'd all be, millionaires on the beach, drinking whatever your poison is, if you will. So if you ask any successful trader what successful trading looks like, most will agree. You can chime in here as well, George. Most would agree that successful trading is actually boring.
When it's going good, it's awfully boring.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
When it's going well, it's awfully boring. In fact, guys, a lot of the work that happens in trading is sitting and watching the markets until your edge presents itself, right? You shouldn't be feeling any sense of, your heartbeat shouldn't be racing as soon as you sit down at your trade station. You shouldn't be getting, goosebumps watching the price ladder moving up and down, when the market opens. You should have a process and a plan. All right. And so when I started trading, I learned really early on the importance of patience. What I thought was required to start making consistent profits in the market versus what it actually took, you kind of realize, oh man, this is going to take a lot more time and a lot more dedication and a lot more persistence, to be quite honest. I know that was my experience. I'm one person that found out about trading on social media. That was one of the first things. Obviously, the original story in the college class or in the university classroom, that's where I initially found the interest. But when I started looking at it more, social media is what brought me to it. And a lot of what I saw on there was that it's possible to get rich quick.
Yeah.
And that was the initial allure of it. And then once I started actually doing it, I realized how much of a journey it actually is. And, if you want to stick around in this industry for the long term, you kind of got to drop that notion that this is going to happen right away.
Right. And it shouldn't, right? And I only laughed when you mentioned that, Mark, because I went through the same thing, except for me, because I did it so long ago, I wasn't exposed to the different ways of instant gratification, right? I didn't really see Lamborghinis, Ferraris, etc., because I was really limited to seeing success within my community only.
Yeah.
Right. And now you could travel worldwide. And the thing about it is, when you look at Instagram stories or like Facebook pages that market this kind of lifestyle, you have to understand that the successful traders don't live that lifestyle. Right. They when you have all the money that you need, all the things that you thought you wanted become so attainable that they're not really worth it anymore. It becomes a higher purpose thing. And so, this is what I think, and this is why I commend you, Mark, because you kind of started in this environment where you were very motivated from external factors, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just trading isn't like ordering Uber Eats. It's not like you see trading, you click trading, you've done trading, right? There's a big step in between. And so I think people are carrying expectations of convenience that they've built around them in their life, in this new way of life, into the trading realm. And that's not the reality. I've been doing this since 2001, going on almost 20 years. I can't believe it. 2001 in my head doesn't sound like that long ago, but I've been doing this since 2001. And I can tell you, I don't know one single person, Mark, that started and from day one's been making money, and I think that this is what we're going to talk about. Patience in your trades, but more importantly, patience with your journey.
Yeah, that's a big one. And, to that point, like I said, early on in my career, I learned how important patience is. And when you kind of think about it from the start of the journey to, the journey never really ends. You're forever a student of the markets if you're planning on doing this for the long term. But it's interesting to see how patience plays a role throughout the whole journey, right? When you start, you don't realize how much patience you actually need to overcome the initial learning curve.
Yeah.
Right. And then once you start making a little bit of money, once you start going from not losing money to, flipping the paddle towards the consistently profitable side where you're starting to make money, you realize, all right, you needed patience to overcome the initial learning curve. Now you need patience to wait for your setup, right? You start to notice that as you become more consistent with your trading, you'll notice that more patience is required. You're not going to be, shooting your shots on every single opportunity. You're going to be filtering those out. And what do you need to filter those out? You need patience, right? You need to have patience to wait for those trades. And then once you start getting more profitable, you realize, okay, now I need to be patient to wait for my trade, but now I have to have even more patience once I get triggered into that trade, because now you got to be patient with the risk management, right? You got to be patient with it. And once you're patient, when you get triggered, you give the trade the potential to fully play out, and you can also maximize your profits. Right. So it's an interesting journey how it goes from, oh man, I need a lot of patience to overcome this, to, oh man, even more patience waiting for my setups. And would you have guessed it? Even more patience once I'm actually in the trade. So that's kind of one of the reasons why, as you guys read the title of this episode, you'll notice the spelling of patience is a little bit odd. But don't worry, the Canadian spell check, that gets a green filter. I
emailed Webster. I'm petitioning to have them change the spelling and credit us. So every time you guys use the word patience from now on, it's 10% royalty to.
Exactly. Or even on Investopedia or something like that.
But you know what I like about this, Mark, that you mentioned? I think you've hit on a key point here, is that there's two types of patience. Patience with your career and journey with trading, and then patience within the actual execution of what your job is. Because if you're working if you own a business, if you work for somebody else, no matter what you're earning your bread with in your life, there's a patience that you have to bring with you to get through today. Mm-hmm. And there's a patience you have to have in the longer term to make it through the career milestones you're planning.
Yeah.
And I think traders could benefit from two types of patience, or it's actually two types of patience we're talking about. And I think that the one that the traders struggle with the most in the early stages is the career patience, right? They want to progress so much faster, but I'm here to tell you that it's going to take, one of the most common questions is, how long is it going to take for me to be profitable? And that depends, right? Everyone has their own journey. So I think we got to distinguish those two, and they're very important. So how do you define patience? We got to kind of give the definition here. The dictionary defines it as the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. I love the fact that in this definition, they're saying that there's something that you have to wait through. Right? Because if you're in a blissful moment, if you're on a yacht with your, whatever your metaphorical life is, you're living your best life, people aren't going to have to be told to be patient. They're going to soak in those moments. It's just patience is required when something isn't going properly. All right. I like that kind of definition to it as well, which brings a different dynamic to it. But so before we move forward, I want to talk about this as well. This is a very key concept here. When you think about patience, all right, what does patience imply? Is that you're waiting for something, right? If you're just sitting here and you're waiting, and I ask you, hey, Mark, what are you waiting for? And you're like, just chilling, nothing. That's not patience. That's wasting time, right? Unless you're relaxing, then it's not wasting time. But patience implies in trading that you're waiting for something. After working with thousands of traders, I could tell you that the number one reason of people not being patient is because they don't have a plan. They don't know what they're waiting for.
Exactly.
And if you don't know what you're waiting for, how do you know when it's going to come? And so there's no way to be patient if you don't have a set plan before you even tackle the day, let alone trading, but the day. Every single day you trade is a new day, new opportunity. If you don't have a plan, how will you wait? You're not going to wait. You're going to overtrade, because we think when we don't have a plan, any trade seems like a good trade at the moment. But then when we go to review a journal, we're like, there's 36 trades here today that I shouldn't have placed. If I remove all the trades I shouldn't have placed, I'm actually left with zero.
I would. I think the last episode we talked about this with regards to fear of loss, but also, somewhat of a spillover into actual patience. And there was that one day where I had a whole bunch of trades that I talked about on the last episode. And, in reviewing that episode, you guys will know that when I reviewed my journal at the end of the day, there was maybe a handful of trades I actually should have taken. And the rest either came down to over trading or just not being patient, and a lot of factors that led into me losing that patience, and that we're actually going to speak on with you guys in this episode here.
Thanks for listening to the Mind Over Market podcast. You can find us at TradeProAcademy.com.